I tried beating Terraria using the Amulet of Many Minions mod. This mod introduces tons of new summoner related weapons, armor sets, and accessories, bringing a complete overhaul to the summoner class. Will I be able to guide my minions through the world of Terraria and defeat Moonlord? Well, let's find out. I started off by spawning into the world, opening up my starter bag, consuming my life crystals, and then going to chop down trees. Upon checking the crafting recipes, I was actually able to craft myself an acorn staff, which summoned a flying acorn minion, and this cost us 12 wood and 6 acorns. This is the very first summoner weapon that we're actually going to use, and it is probably the most underwhelming thing I've ever seen. Along with this, in the top right, there was actually a smarter way to utilize your minions, and you can group them in various different categories, so that was pretty neat. I continued chopping down trees, and then I realized that we can actually craft a brand new set of armor called the Mildew armor. This required Daybloom, mushrooms, and wood, and it was the bare bones starting summoner armor. So as soon as I gathered all the resources, I came back to spawn, crafted myself a full set of this armor, and as a set bonus, we were granted 2 extra minion slots. I summoned in 2 acorns, and then went over to mine within the caverns. I got lost, so I came back to spawn and started digging myself a elevator. I stumbled upon a blue glowing mushroom biome, but then I ended up dying to a bone skeleton. Upon coming back to spawn, I actually came all the way back to the mushroom biome, got myself a life crystal, picked up some more ores in the underground, and then I came back to spawn. The next couple of minutes were once again spent mining in the caves until I found myself the summon for the Eye of Cthulhu. Once I got the summon, I came back to spawn, summoned the boss in, and before we could defeat it, it actually managed to run away. This was extremely sad, so I decided to build myself some NPC houses so I could have some moral support, and then I went back mining. I continued to work on my elevator, explored the caverns a little bit more, built myself even more NPC houses upon coming back to spawn, and as the world was infested with a blood moon, I went back down to mine. During this time, I crafted myself a platinum cobalt pet emblem, which lets any normal Terraria pet of our choosing actually deal damage to mobs. We can upgrade this emblem later to receive more overpowered summons, but for now we don't even have a single pet, so we can't utilize it. I got myself a mining helmet while in the caverns, and once I came back to spawn, I actually crafted myself a brand new summon. This was the slime cart staff, and it summoned in a little slime cart. This dealt a little bit more damage than the acorn staff, but it was still very underpowered compared to everything else we could get. While exploring the sky islands, I actually managed to find myself the crest of the sky, which was a brand new Squire weapon. These essentially summon in a controllable little doll, and there are various different Squires throughout the game that we can obtain. This one shot arrows and had a special ability where it could rapid fire a bunch of arrows, and each single Squire has its very own special ability. After this, I came back to spawn and started fighting the Eye of Cthulhu. I had 2 summons that dealt some passive damage, and then I could use the crest of the sky, which was my Squire, to deal damage to the Eye of Cthulhu. We took it out quite quickly, and after this, I proceeded to craft myself the unstable detonator and the pumpkin crest. The unstable detonator actually summoned in a little bomb minion that would explode upon bosses, so I fought the Eye of Cthulhu once more, and we took it out again. The pumpkin crest was another Squire that we got, and it shot out pumpkins at enemies, and its special ability was to charge up a massive pumpkin and then just unload it upon a crowd. During this time, I went back down to the caverns, got myself some more ores, got myself a life crystal, and upon coming back to spawn, I fought and defeated King Slime. I crafted myself a set of royal armor, which was more specialized to the Squires and made them deal more damage, but after this, I went over to the corruption, chucked some bombs at the orbs, and summoned in the Eater of Worlds. Using the pumpkin crest Squire, we absolutely squashed this boss, and upon coming back to spawn, I crafted myself a nightmare pickaxe, crafted myself the crest of shadows, which summoned in the shadow Squire with full demonite armor, which was absolutely cute and devastating. But after this, I went to go mine up some hellstone, I got myself some obsidian, and upon coming back to spawn, I crafted myself a molten pickaxe, and then went over to Skeletron's dungeon to fight and defeat Skeletron. Skeletron. Within his dungeon, I looted a bunch of his chests, picked up a bunch of water candles, and upon coming all the way back to spawn, I got a prompt telling me that the goblins were invading. I turned up the mob spawn rates just to have more goblins spawning at once, and using the Crest of Shadows, we absolutely shredded through the goblin invasion, taking it out in no time whatsoever. After this, using a bunch of bones and shadow skills, I crafted myself a full set of illusionist armor, which was the best pre-hard mode summoner item in the game within this mod. I got myself a bunch of various different summoner accessories, and then I went over to the jungle to go and fight Queen Bee. We took her out quite quickly using the Crest of Shadows, and I actually managed to get myself a baby shark pet, which we can use with one of the emblems to actually make it deal damage. With the introduction of this mod, any normal Terraria pet can actually damage mobs, and they aren't just there for show. Another thing that I found out is in the top left, the more various different pets you have, the higher damage boost you get. So the mod was encouraging you to try out as many different minions as you could possibly get your hands on. After I came back to spawn, I bought a bunch of buff potions, went down to the underworld, made a massive arena for the Wall of Flesh, and went to go farm out for a guide voodoo doll. As soon as I got one, I chucked it into the lava and summoned in the Wall of Flesh. Using the Crest of Shadows, the baby shark minion, the skeleton little biker boy minions that I had, we absolutely demolished the Wall of Flesh with no trouble whatsoever, putting us into hard mode. From the Wall of Flesh, I actually got the Bone Serpent Staff, which summoned in the Stardust Dragon, essentially made out of bones. And while exploring a chest near the corruption biome, I managed to get myself a bow of friendship. In the desert, I opened up and used this bow of friendship and went through a little questionnaire that gave me a very unique pet. Anyways, I equipped the pet and then went to go break a bunch of demon altars. This blessed my world with palladium, mithril, and titanium, letting us now start the everlasting pickaxe progression. I got myself a palladium pickaxe first, got myself a mithril pickaxe and mithril anvil, and then I went mining for titanium. I got myself a full set of titanium armor and then a titanium crest. The titanium crest was a brand new squire that actually summoned in a little titanium boyo that flew around like a drone, damaging anything that we specified to deal damage to. I wasn't really too happy with my weapons yet, so I also got myself the Soulbound Sword and the Soulbound Bow. These are essentially like the Knight's Edge and the Excalibur of the Summoner class, and they had very cool abilities. I went down to fight the Wall of Flesh once more, and then upon coming back to the surface, I got a prompt that tonight was going to be a terrible night. The twins spawned in, and me thinking that I was actually going to take them out, I tried my best. I genuinely put effort into this, and I got absolutely demolished. I guess we're going to have to power up even more. I decided to go over to the Sky Islands and farm out some wyverns as well as harpies. I got myself a pair of harpy wings once I came back to spawn and then built a proper arena for the hard mode bosses. I got myself all the summons for the mechanical bosses and then bought a bunch of buff potions and buffed up to fight the destroyer. Using the Soulbound Bow and the Soulbound Sword, we actually managed to take this boss out, and right after this, I combined the Souls of Might from the destroyer and 10 crystal shards to make myself the Crystal Fist Staff. This summoned in this weird golem that would punch everything around it, and it was very powerful, especially for taking out the various mechanical bosses. I next summoned in the twins, and then using the same Soulbound Sword and Soulbound Bow, along with the Crystal Fist, we absolutely demolished the twins, and then next took out Skeletron Prime. Upon defeating Skeletron Prime, I crafted myself the Pickaxe Axe and a brand new Hallowed Emblem, which made all of our pets deal more damage. Since we defeated Skeletron, we also got the prompt that the jungle grows restless. Do you guys know what does not grow restless? That is right, Boio's subscriber count if you don't press the button. So I decided to subscribe to the channel to keep Boio a happy man. Once we took out Skeletron Prime, I fought the destroyer a couple more times, and then I went down to the jungle in order to farm out some chlorophyte and also get myself some granite spark so we can craft ourselves a brand new set of this granite biome which was made by combining the granite sparks with hallowed bars. Keep in mind, we were fighting almost every single boss up until this point with nearly the starting pre-hard mode armor, so this was going to be a massive upgrade that is definitely going to make my balls feel far bigger. So upon crafting a full set of this armor, we actually got ourselves a massive minion damage increase, and then I also crafted myself the Clarent, which was this Excalibur looking sword that laid on my back and deal damage passively to any mob that would go and interrupt me. I got myself a summoner emblem, crafted myself a bunch of good summoner accessories, and then upon coming back to spawn, I bought myself a bunch of buffs, went back to the jungle, built a massive arena for Plantera, spawned her in, and took her out using the soulbound bow and the soulbound sword. After this, I went to go farm out for ectoplasm within the dungeon, and once I got enough, I came back to spawn and made myself the armored bone squire. This was very overpowered and dealt loads of damage, and then after this I went over to Golem's temple, fought and defeated Golem, and then got a bunch of solar fragments and solar tablets so that when I came back to spawn I could actually summon in the solar eclipse. Before we did this, I summoned in and took out the pumpkin moon a couple of times so I can get myself the crest of the night, which was a golden rogue squire that was also really cool, but it wasn't as good as the armored bone squire, which we crafted with ectoplasm. But the reason that I wanted to do the pumpkin moon was to get ourselves a full set of spooky armor, which is the best summoner armor within the game. After crafting a full set of spooky armor, I decided to fight the solar eclipse so we can get a broken hero sword and combine our soulbound sword and soulbound bow to make the soulbound arsenal. This was essentially a 2-in-1 weapon combo of both of these weapons, and it was very powerful. After this, I crafted myself a new pair of wings, got myself essentially the best summoner accessories that I can get, and then I went to go fight the lunatic cultist. Using the soulbound arsenal, we absolutely demolished this boss. I mean, this weapon ended up being like a complete laser, and then it also shot out some swords. It was super overpowered, so to no one's surprise, we absolutely shredded through the lunatic cultist, and then started the celestial pillar event. I took out the Stardust Pillar first, and using the Stardust Fragments, I crafted myself the Stardust Squire, which shot out a bunch of little baby dragons, and its special ability was to summon in this constellation. This looks super neat, and I don't know how the mod developers did this, but this is very cool. I used this as my main weapon to take out the Vortex Pillar next, and once that was taken out, I came over to fight the Nebula Pillar, and lastly, we had the Solar Pillar left. Before this, I bought a bunch of buff potions, got myself the Raven Staff, and then took out the Solar Pillar. Our screen started shaking, and this is where I started to panic because I wasn't sure if I'd actually be able to take out Moonlord using the Summoner class. With no time to think, the Moonlord spawned in, and using the Stardust Squire, we dealt as much damage as we could to him. And with the power of the summon, we actually managed to take out all 3 of his eyes quite quickly and defeat the Moonlord. There was one final summon that we could craft, and I thought, hey, why not show you how cool this thing actually is? I needed a bunch of fragments, needed some Luminite, but once I came over to the Ancient Manipulator, I combined my Acorn Staff with all these various endgame materials and crafted myself the Sacred Sapling Staff. This summoned this massive tree that did absolutely the most craziest things. I decided to fight Moonlord once more, just to show off the power of these minions and how totally broken they actually are. Consider checking out another video like this on screen. Drop a like on the video if you enjoyed it. This has been Boio. Peace out.